Hey all, welcome back to another episode. Today I'm going to have my dear friend Steph Lawlor on the show with me. She is an absolute delight, a coach as well, someone that has truly been a mentor for me in not only my physical journey, but how I respond to life in general. And she is just going to be full of a wealth of knowledge. So I can't wait for you guys to get to know her and to be able to take away some amazing points from this podcast as well. All right, guys. So this is my beautiful friend, Miss Stephanie Lawlor. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is never lost on me that you are sharing me with your audience, with people that you have built relationships with, and to bring me on is just an absolute honor. So thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm really excited. So my name is Stephanie Lawlor. I have been a personal trainer, a nutrition specialist since 2015. I have a 20-year teaching career. I taught both high school and college. So at 40, I made this big career shift and decided that I was done with teaching. It really wasn't where my passion was anymore. And because that is such a passion driven career, I knew that it was time to find something new. And this was health and wellness space is just a place that's always called to me, but more so through my journey as a special needs mom. My youngest is 17, but she's got cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, sensory processing stuff, a whole host of issues. And really at that point, connecting back to my own health and wellness and understanding how important it was to take care of myself. And in doing so, being able to be a better mom, wife, all these roles, decided that I was going to take this leap into doing something else. And that's where it all kind of aligned for me, was helping other, primarily women, understand the importance of taking care of themselves and, not just their fitness, but all of the parts of that and what it looks like. So 2015, I made the move. I worked for a year personal training in a gym and just felt very limited. Can only do so much with people, 30 minutes, a couple times a week. And so really fully transitioned my business to an online format in 2016. And have been working with First Form pretty much that entire time. I'm one of their master trainers, but I own my own company, Warrior Fitness. And through that, I run quarterly challenges. I do one-on-one coaching, do a lot of education, really just feel so fulfilled in being able to, help other women, especially other busy moms, make themselves a priority and really just get back to a place where they feel good. They feel good in mind, body, and spirit. And to be able to walk that journey, as you well know, with others is just absolutely an amazing thing. Something cool we get to do every day.
Absolutely. It always amazes me how much you have handled and gone through and things that have changed with you over the years. Because I've only known you since probably 2020-ish is probably when we first met. So it's been about 4 years already. It's so crazy. Um, okay, so one of like the big things that I'd like to touch on, because I do have a number of special needs moms that I work with. I know
Yeah.
you talk about this all the time, but it's something you're very passionate about. So obviously, some of the things that come up that maybe you wouldn't have anticipated to be difficulties, things that have overcome, how you manage that when she was littler, now she's older. Like, how does life change when that happens?
It's so funny because in that she wasn't my first, you kind of feel like you're somewhat prepared for any subsequent child that's going to come. But as you well know, and having two, one is not like the other, even though you can raise them similarly and, all those kinds of things. Just having two typical kids, they're so different. And I think that there's some beauty in that, but there's just a whole nother level when your child is different in some way, right? And so in the beginning, our journey was really just on more of the physical parts, the gross motor skills and physical therapy and PT, OT, all of those things, just to get her to the place where she needs to be from a fine and gross motor standpoint. And so then you feel like, okay, we've hurdled, we've gotten through this hurdle. I've got this part figured out. And you just keep unraveling the layers. There was so much more to it than just her physical skills that we had to work on. Then it really was into her speech therapy and uncovering all kinds of issues with speech and that connection to her brain, where some miswirings were and the intellectual piece. And all of it has just been such a different journey at every stage. Now she's 17. We have a year left of school. And so now it's that whole journey of, she looks 17. There's some parts of her that very much are, but intellectually she's probably closer to 10, 9 or 10 years old. And so it's this very strange dynamic to look at this full grown kid who's, fully developed and looks like a typical teenager. She's taller than me, but having that intellectual piece that's lagging, and that social piece that's lagging makes it really tough. And so now I feel like we're to this next stage of the journey. We've gotten the physical down, we've worked through some of the cognitive stuff and the speech stuff, and now it's like, what's this next step for her? What does that look like? What does life look like? And it's things that I never anticipated. I would love for her to have a job of some sort where she feels like she's valuable in that way. But there are parts of this as a special needs mom that I would never have thought about with my oldest. She went and got a job. I never worried about it. It's just that. But especially with the intellectual piece, she's very statistically susceptible to being abused. And that carries a whole other host of issues. There's a grocery store here, and they hire a lot of special needs young adults. It's like, okay, this is a perfect fit. It's practically in our backyard. We know a lot of people that frequent that. I feel like that's a pretty safe place. But one of the things that they have these kids do is take the groceries out to people's cars for them. And that concerns me, because my youngest would probably just get right in if someone asked. She doesn't have that danger piece, even though we've had the conversation ad nauseum. So, it's things like that I never anticipated. Okay, well, she's 17. We're, getting to that life stage where we need to think about some independent skills and jobs and things like that. And there's just so much more to it that I never anticipated. So, you just have to figure it out as you go. And it's a very lonely, isolating place. There's not a lot of support. There's not a lot of people like me in my small circle that I can lean on, or has been through this before me, kind of that next stage mom. And so a lot of it has just been figuring it out as I go along, and I feel like that's one of the ways that I have been called to help others. And, maybe this will reach someone who's on your podcast, is to be that next step for someone who's going through this, maybe with a child who's a little bit younger than my own, to be able to offer, if nothing else, a little grace, a little compassion, a little empathy for what that journey looks like. And because it can feel pretty lonely.
I can only imagine. I mean, I'm so grateful that my kids are as, I don't even know how to state it, right? Healthy
Mhm.
as they
Yeah,
are. Um,
absolutely.
but I can't even imagine having that thrown at you. But I feel like you handle it with such grace. So I know you have your hard days because we have conversations, but you're just amazing in that aspect for sure. Um, I think one of the other things that's really fascinating about you is that not only have you always had fitness and nutrition kind of as a priority in your life, but you were a teacher up until, would that have been 7 years ago?
Mhm. Yeah, my
Okay,
God, 7, 8 years ago.
7 years ago. And that's when you made the big switch and you were 40 at that point. So I want to really like emphasize, like, 40 is not old by any means, right? That's not what I'm saying, but it's not too late to make a change towards something that you really want to make. So what helped you know that it was time to really like pull off that band-aid?
Yeah, and that was a really scary jump for me, because, by nature, I think that there are some people who are a little bit more just inclined to be a risk taker, or more that are conservative in their approach. And I'm certainly of the more conservative type, which is probably exactly why I was in education. It's a safe job, it's a steady job, it's a certain amount of pay. There's a lot of comfort in the repetition of that job. And so for me to be at this place where I'm like, forget it, I'm leaving all of this behind at 40 years old, which no, isn't old, but knowing that I only really had like 5 or 6 more years until I could have retired, and to make this huge shift where I had spent my entire life, my entire career so vested in that, to jump off to something else that I didn't have any background in. I've never owned a business. I didn't know the financial side to it, or the marketing side, or, you know, any of that. I didn't know any of that. I knew education. I knew English education. And so it was something that was very scary, but I just had felt for probably 2 years prior to when I actually decided to quit, I just didn't feel like it was it anymore. And I think if you've ever been through something where you've outgrown whatever it is, a job, a relationship, a physical location that you're living in, it gnaws at you. And it starts to make it day to day harder to go in there and do a job and really give it your all, because it's not the thing that drives you anymore. I'll always be an educator. I mean, this in such large part is exactly that. But just the way that I was teaching, and where I was, I knew it wasn't a fit for me anymore. And it just was almost like this knocking at the door that I couldn't ignore anymore. It was subtle in the beginning, like a little just tap at the heart to say, maybe this isn't where you're supposed to be, until I really got to that point that quit. And it was like someone banging, all hands on the door, like, it's time to go. This has run its course. It's been a great run. This has obviously prepared you for whatever this next step is going to be, but you have to go. And I think that that's the message in all of this is if there's something that drives you, if there's something that you feel passionate about, whether you feel that at 40 or at 60 or at 80, you owe it to yourself. But really more than that, you owe it to the legacy that you want to leave behind. I think back to all of the relationships that I have made, including this one. None of that would ever have come into play if I hadn't had the courage and just really that connection to self to leave this piece of my life behind, to honor it and be so thankful for what it offered me when it did, but also to honor that there was something else I was supposed to be doing, call it the universe, God, whatever it is you believe in, just to have that calling that there's something else for you. I think I think if you're really in tune with yourself and with your heart and soul, it's eventually going to get to that place where you can't ignore it anymore. Virtually have no other option than to just listen and take action.
Oh my God, I love it so much. It's so relatable. Like, yes, I quit my job too, right? 4 years ago this year. Isn't that crazy?
That's
Um,
wild.
I know. And you're so right. Like, there's just that gnawing at you, whatever you want to call it. But when you go to whatever said work is, it's just not what is making you happy. Doesn't mean you have to start your own business. It doesn't mean you need to launch a career like in something completely different. Maybe you just switch jobs, right? Like, I just want to really emphasize you don't need to stay unhappy.
No.
Either find somewhere where you are happy or do a better job so that you are happier doing current job, right? Like, something has to change. And I know that you and I chat a lot about, yeah, we just don't really care what anybody thinks about us anymore.
Not at all.
I just love that. So if I'm ever having a hard day, I just text Steph and I'm like, today's one of those days." And I just I lean on you a lot for that because I've always looked up to you. And I mean, I guess what's your take on how in the world to actually get to a point where you don't care, where like, not that you don't care about anybody else, but that you just don't care about anyone else's reactions anymore. How do you get there?
Well, I mean, I'm living proof of it. If any of you guys are watching this on video, I told Nikki before this, I had some laser resurfacing done under my eyes. It's to that healing stage where you're not supposed to touch it, just keep lotion on it, but you just have to let the skin do its thing. So it looks really gnarly. And in my 30s, I would have been mortified. I never would have left the house, let alone agree to be on a podcast that's videoed as well. But you just get to this point in your life where you really stop. It's not that you stop caring, it's that you start caring about things that truly matter. And I think that's what it is. It's a shift in your priorities, it's a shift in your life and your circle. I think a lot of it comes with age and experience. And I don't think that you can speed that process up. I think that there are some who are just naturally inclined to really not care and never do. My sister's one. She's always just danced to her own beat. And it's something that I have so admired and respected about her. She's 3 years younger than I am, but it's something I've always just thought has been so awesome since we were little. Like she just would tell it like it is to anyone, didn't care, dress how she wanted, acted how she wanted. And I always, as the firstborn, kind of type A, so long for that. So I think some of it is personality, but I also think that a lot of it is just you get to this age and place in your life where it just doesn't matter as much anymore. You realize that your circle is small and we've talked about this before, this concept of not everyone deserves even an equal access to you. Not everyone even deserves access to you. So when you really start to focus on the quality of people and how much and whom you let into your life, it does start to change that because the right people don't care, right? The right people are with you through whatever stage you're in and through your evolution as a human and watching that journey. So it helps you to have a little bit more confidence because you're around those kinds of people who support that. But for me, I think it's just been a lot of age and experience and confidence. But I think the other part of it is, and I mentioned this earlier, is I just have really never felt like I fit into any one nice little box. I never felt like I was the typical teacher. When I first started teaching high school, I was really young. I was only 21 in a pretty veteran group of other teachers. So I didn't really fit in there. I'm teaching with women who are 50, 60 years old. And, here I come kind of this young buck and I'm going to change the world with all of my new ideas. And, these teachers are looking at me for these crazy things I'm doing in my classroom. So I didn't ever really fit into that space. And then I became a mom and a lot of my ideals and values and how I wanted to raise my girls didn't align. And so I didn't fit into the typical mom's club. And then I had my youngest, and that was just a whole different animal. And, like I said, I didn't have other special needs moms that I felt as if I fit into. So a lot of that was just life handing me the opportunity to not really care what people think, because I have never fit in, and it bothered me for a long time. But now I'm at this place where I'm almost 50, and I embrace that. I'm okay with that. So say it's personality, but I think a lot of it is just your age and experience too.
Oh, yes, you are just on fire today. You're
Oh,
so good
thank
on a
you.
Monday.
Thank you. It's a lot of caffeine. That's the trick.
Oh my gosh, yeah, right, that's the truth. Okay, so kind of switching gears a little bit, but I know that you and I have both like we're both more of like that type A, right? Which is really why it was hard for us to maybe let go of certain things for a long time and
Sure.
get to where we're at. But I also know that that came with a lot of extra like to-do lists, stressors, time management, that kind of stuff, which you've always been on top of, but you have put into place something that works really, really well for you. You don't start work until what, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning usually?
Yeah.
And that's amazing, right? I couldn't wait that long for me. I kind of switch it and I take the afternoon kind of to myself. But what was like your lowest point? Because I know that you weren't always like that. You were always kind of driving your nose into the ground. So where were you when you like really hit kind of like that bottom of like I'm burnt out at both ends? And what changes did you make to fix that?
That burnout probably came year 3 or 4 into this, so not that long ago. And I think part of it was driven by the fact that my oldest was getting ready to be in her last year and a half to 2 years of high school. And it's this really strange awakening when all of a sudden you realize that the dynamic of your family is going to change, and it's coming. There's this excitement about it, but it's also so bittersweet. And it was at that point where I had given everything to jumping into this business. I didn't have a plan B. I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have a bankroll of money in case this whole thing didn't pan out. I didn't have any other choice but to make this work. And so with that came missile lock, blinders on, and when I set my mind to something, I'm very much 0 or 100. And so when I decided to do this, it was like, I'm doing this and I'm going all in. And it was literally driving my ass into the ground, um, day after day, year after year, holidays, vacations, weekends, just go, no matter what, it was doing this and making sure that I set this foundation so this business was going to be successful. And it really hit me one spring break. I was trying so hard to have a better balance, that whole concept. So waking up early before it was time to go to the beach for the day or whatever we are going to do, and work in the mornings, work at night, try to make all these pieces fit. And I remember getting ready to go to the beach, and my little one, she was, still fairly young at the time. She made some excuse for me. She's like, no, 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 mommy can't go to the beach. She has to work. It's okay. Mom's got to work. We're going to go to the beach. And it was like, what am I doing? I'm doing all of this because I want financial freedom and I want to provide a great life for my girls and for our family. But at what cost is that going to come? And, I talked about this on our sponsor trainer mentorship calls. Like, you can only expect that support for so long, and you're blessed if you have it. You're blessed if you have a spouse, a family, friends who understand that and support you. But that isn't unlimited. Like, you can't ignore all of these other parts to your life in an effort to make this thing work. And so that was really a low point for me. It was a high point in my business, but in my personal life, very much a low point. And I realized I had to shift it around. I had to look at what I was doing and why I was doing these things. I had to look at what that cost exchange was going to be for saying yes to this. And that meant saying no to being part of my daughter's swim meet and not being able to go with her to that, or some other kind of change. And I just got to that place where I realized it's not worth it if I can't do with this life what I want. So that was when I made a big change. I think financially my business took a hit a little bit, but it almost had to then realign. And I remember just thinking, I've gotten so far into all of these different aspects that this business doesn't even look like where I started from. I'm doing offerings in this, and I've got 4 coaches, and we're going to take on the world. And it was great, but it was almost something that was becoming unrecognizable to me and in my heart. And so it was really just this time to drive it back home and figure out what were the things that I truly wanted to do. I wanted to help people. Why was I setting off on this journey? So what does that look like? And how can I make some adjustments so that I'm not just head down all the time? So I did, and I made some changes to my daily schedule. Like you mentioned, I don't start working until 9 in the morning. that gives me the time to make sure that I'm up, I'm spending time, for myself and with my morning routine, getting my little one ready for school, get her out the door. Then I go take my walk, have that time to kind of center myself, get some movement in because I'm very much sedentary, which everyone's always so surprised about, but you're a personal trainer, right? But it's online and I just stand here all day long. So really most mornings it's like 9 o'clock. And then, I work pretty steadily until I leave around 3 to go pick up my daughter and then do a little bit of work in the afternoons and then it's done. So I really have moved to almost more of a 4-day work week. I pack in as much as I possibly can Monday through Thursday. Friday is an overflow day. Friday is a day to work on future projects. But I'm finally to this place in my life and in my business where I can take off and go do something midweek. My youngest has a field trip that I'm chaperoning in a couple of weeks, and I've blocked off that entire day. I would never have dreamed doing that 3, 4 years ago, even. So, but you go back to, well, why did I do this to begin with? Because I wanted that freedom. I wanted that flexibility. And yes, it means that I'll have to pick up those hours some other time, but I have that flexibility to do that.
Oh my God. I almost cried. So, I didn't know that about your spring break. The kids are so darn honest, right? So Shay is 10. Um, and we're going on a horseback riding trip this coming weekend with my mom, just the three of us out in Arizona in the mountains, right? And I looked at the site and she's like, "Are you bringing your computer?" I'm like, "Yes." But like literally the site says Wi-Fi is limited, right? Like I'm going to go to the lodge and have a half hour to catch up on anything that my coaches can't do on their own. And then I'm shutting the computer down for the rest of the day. And the only reason I have my phone is to take pictures on us on horses, right? That's it. And she really just, her one request from my 10-year-old was to not worry about work this weekend while I was with her.
Man, I
And I'm
know.
like, oh God, it's pulling my heartstrings. Like, okay, I know I'm making the right changes. Like, I removed all of my evening calls. I'm taking on a new coaching program that involves some high school athletes. So that's kind of like gonna play into the evenings a little bit, but I can bring her with me and she's kind of like my little billboard. So that
Yeah.
it works great in that way, but like I don't do nighttime calls anymore. I don't do nighttime meetings. I shut my computer down at 4 o'clock almost every single day.
Mm,
And it's been life changing. So, like you said, yes, a little bit of a hit to the business, or maybe we just rework where we're profitable
right.
and train and trust our employees to help us when we need it. Eh,
Absolutely.
Amazing. Being able to actually trust someone and let go has been,
That control piece is so hard. It is. Yeah, that
oh,
delegation piece is something I've always struggled with. And it's from a good, honest place. You care and you love your business and you love what you do, and there's such pride in that. But it's also such a freeing, brave thing to be able to hand over some parts of that, whether it's in your business or your home life, to be able to just let go of some of that. And the funny thing is, and the part that is weird that we can't wrap our brains around is this is why we do what we do for other people. So they can delegate it and they can let go of it and pass that on to someone else. And so we're in a business of this is the task delegated, yet we also have a really hard time doing that ourselves. So it's definitely a place where I'm like, okay, I have to practice what I preach here. I'm telling my clients to delegate and take as much as they can off their plates. Yet I'm so firmly holding on to all of these things. It doesn't make any sense.
oh my gosh, yes. Oh, in all the ways that is so accurate. Um, okay, so something else I know we kind of talked about a little bit before, and this is definitely switching gears on you. So, you're 47. I know that you're not perimenopause, menopause yet, but you are preparing to get into that phase of life. And I'm not quite there yet. I've done a lot of studying. I kind of know how to help people that are getting to that point or have a really good idea of what to do. But what are your best suggestions, best things that you've done for your own fitness? Because y'all, if you look at Steph's picture, she does not look 47 in any sense of the word. So I just like, what are your best suggestions for women that are getting ready to go through that or are going through it right now?
I just got an email today, a message through the app, and this client said she's new to me, so I was kind of getting some background information, but she was expressing that she's 45 and the things that she used to do to stay in shape and to feel good are not working anymore. And it was just so affirming that we have to get out of this very limited space in health and wellness, that we can treat all women at any stage even and equally, right? I mean, there has to be some customization to it, but I think there also has to be a lot of merit given to women who are in this peri and postmenopausal stage. And unfortunately, there's a lot of of people out there, a lot of big influencers, big names who are very dismissive of it. And it's offensive when you get to that period in your life where you're like, okay, listen, I'm not making excuses. I'm still working out. I'm still watching what I eat. I'm still doing all these right things, and my body is changing, or I don't feel the same in my mind, right? Things are just different. And so even though I'm not there yet, there's certainly signs and symptoms that my body is preparing for that. Things are just a little softer. I feel like I'm having a harder time holding on to, just muscle definition, kind of that hard look that I used to have. Um, Even though I'm still trying to lift heavy, I'm eating plenty enough protein, I'm doing all those things. So there has to be some understanding of women's hormones and how all that is interplaying with how we look, how we feel, and then making those best practice suggestions to our female clients who are in that stage. Obviously labs are going to be incredible. I recommend all my clients have full female hormone panels done, CBC, CMP, full thyroid, and then all of the hormones done as well, to have that baseline in their early 40s so we can start looking for some of those markers, and then making some shifts. When we're looking at specifically exercise, doing a ton of high intensity work is hell on the perimenopausal women. It's just driving inflammation up. It's driving our cortisol up. Everything else is so out of balance because of that. So being able to pull back, and it's hard. This particular woman I'm speaking about loves Orange Theory and was doing that just 5 days a week, was competing in these challenges, but really felt like she was puffy and inflamed and didn't feel good, didn't look the way she thought she would. And so it's hard though, coming to terms with that. Okay, you love Orange Theory, great. You can do it like 1 or 2 days a week, but really we need to back down and focus more on strength, on progressive programming, and backing off of some of that high intensity stuff, because our bodies are already under tremendous stress, and that's just really exacerbating the issue. So I think that is a great recommendation. Something I preach to every single client, but certainly women in this bracket, is sleep. There's so much that's happening from a restorative perspective when we sleep, and it does become more difficult. I've never been a person who struggles with sleep. Like, I'm the kind, put me in the car for 5 minutes and I can fall asleep. I've been this way since I was a kid, but I am noticing that waking up at 3 a.m. thing, and a little bit of like hot flashes. I'm kind of a hot sleeper anyway. So it's strange when I've never had a hard time sleeping through the night. And now this is something I understand. I've heard women in the past, my mom, my mother-in-law, I just can't sleep anymore. Like, what are you talking about? That's not even a world I can relate to. I'm so tired by the time I go to bed, but I see it now. So doing things to really look at sleep hygiene, bringing in supplements like magnesium, obviously. Nothing even wrong with a little bit of melatonin, although that can downregulate your body's own production, but doing some other things that help with natural production of melatonin. Tart cherry juice is a great one to add in. Really backing off screens and having a good nighttime routine so you can get into that parasympathetic state. But just understanding that absolutely does have something to do with this whole thing. And then obviously looking at nutrition. That's going to be what drives everything. But again, I think that's sometimes frustrating for women when they say, I'm eating according to my macros, I'm being honest with my logging and tracking, I'm lifting, I'm working out, but things seem to be stagnating a little bit, and so bringing women up with their calories, even looking at some of the insulin piece too, backing off on some of the carbohydrates, because those receptors by this age are pretty beat up. Moving them not to keto, but maybe more high fat, at least for some period of time, is wonderful for our hormones. Really getting some of those good healthy fats in there, because that's a place a lot of women struggle. Plenty of fiber, right? Trying to hit 25 grams of fiber, and just really moving away from as much processed foods and exogenous sugar as we can, and eating more of a whole food diet. It's never going to be perfect. I'm someone who firmly believes in the power of food to help or to heal, but I would say 85-15% is probably how I do it. I try to eat pretty clean for the majority of my diet, but yeah, I love a handful of chips just like anybody, so but I think the more we can get to looking at food and how that can help us through some of these things, it's amazing. The body's always in a place where it wants to heal itself. It wants to get to that place of homeostasis, but we have mucked up the environment so much that it has a hard time doing that. So we got to get the environment right, and then the body is so able to heal, to detox, all those things that we're asking of it, to age youthfully, right? And well, I think that's everybody's goal.
Oh my gosh, yes. So it's so interesting, right? And what I've come to really understand and realize, because I didn't struggle with I struggled with hormone issues for a long time because of my own stupidity, or I shouldn't say stupidity, but mistakes that were helping other
Learning.
people learn.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I had to do was reduce stress, focus on heavy lifting, not high intensity, and focusing on whole foods, especially high quality fats. Very
Yes.
interesting, right? That is exactly what you need to do when you're in perimenopausal years to help do the same thing. So basically the same habits that you learn to do now to take care of your hormones are going to benefit you at that point and they're on forward.
Absolutely. And I wrote a post about this months ago, but things that I wish I would have known in my 30s. I wish I would have known in my late 20s and 30s how important strength training is. That how that declination happens and happens so fast, losing bone density, losing lean muscle mass. And by the time you get to this age, it's not that you can't continue to build muscle, but like you are doing your very best just to dang hold on to what you've got. So understanding that your 30s should be that building phase where you are doing everything you can to build that lean muscle, because that is the driver for so much hormone health as well, right? How much muscle mass you have, what that lean mass is, what that is going to look like in terms of your implications to not just your body fat, but visceral fat, most importantly. So absolutely. I wish I would have put more emphasis and put more of my own research and education into understanding good hormone health habits in my 30s, because that is absolutely going to translate to what those later years look like and what the quality of those years looks like. I feel like if you could prepare for those things, then when you do get to your 40s, 50s, whenever perimenopause begins for you, it's so much of an easier journey. I look at clients who have not been healthy, and man, it's like they are just beaten up with these perimenopausal symptoms. They've got horrible hot flashes. They can't sleep. They're gaining weight. It's all of these horrible things. And then you look at someone who's been more focused on their health and put in the work. When they hit this, they might bump a little bit with it, right? They might have some things that are a bit bothersome and out of the ordinary, but it doesn't seem to be as impacting as those who've really put in the work in their 30s.
So incredibly true. And honestly, cutting calories is not usually the answer. Honestly, if
Never.
anything, it's increasing calories with quality fats and proteins. That's where we need to
Sure,
be.
for
Oh,
sure.
it's crazy. I was just talking to my mom this weekend. She came out to watch the kids play some sports this weekend, and she's been going through menopause for 20 years. It's insane. And I'm like, is this my future? But then I look at her, right? And even if she listens to this, she'll know it's not me getting offensive with her because
So,
I even yelled at her. She got up, drank a Pepsi, and then didn't eat anything except for a fig bar until like 11 a.m. And I'm like, Mom, what the hell are you doing? I am a nutrition coach. Why are you not eating protein?
I know. No, I completely understand. Listen, my mom is 68. She's had two hip replacement surgeries and did very well. Like she's very youthful. She's, in great physical shape. But through both of those surgeries, I saw her through. And both times the orthopedic surgeon said, you have got to be eating more protein because her hips were just bone on bone. There was nothing there. And he's like, part of this is because same thing. I'm on this diet of drink coffee. My mom drinks like she claims she only drinks 2 cups of coffee, and same thing. She could listen to it and I tell it to her face. But yeah, she's like, what do you mean? I drink 2 cups of coffee a day. I'm like you may use 2 cups each day, but you are refilling them multiple times, mother, and eating nothing, absolutely nothing. And so
Yes.
it is funny to me too to watch that, and maybe not directly with perimenopausal symptoms, but other things,
Mhm.
other things that she is dealing with, and just watching the muscle wasting that's happening in her. And, she's always been, I would say, probably a strong 150 pounds, but just a strong body type. My grandmother's the same, like good Polish blood. And watching how small my mom, just kind of watching her body shrink, both height, but a lot of muscle mass and bone density. And, it makes me sad because I'm starting to see that parlay into her physical abilities and not being as active as she once was, or wants to be as she's retired, and seeing some of those limitations. And just like you, like that's not what I hope for. But I
Mhm.
think we have to also feel really good about the fact that, yeah, I mean, genetics come into play a little bit, but it's more so what your lifestyle is like, and all of these things that you're doing right now, which is so good and so smart to help you when you do get to that stage. It'll be a breeze.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And that was one of the biggest points I wanted to hit home. Your mom and her, what she's gone through, even hits home too. Like, if your parents are going through this right now, because a lot of the people are my age, these types of things are going to help them postmenopausal, whatever they're dealing with, just to like
Absolutely.
reduce medical bills, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be what we're
Yeah.
after. So yeah, I mean, and Nothing against mom. She's stubborn, just like I am, but I swear I'm gonna harp on her all weekend, like protein now.
When my
Um,
mom comes, I'm literally like making her a protein shake, and I'm like, here, drink this. Because if I give it to her, she will do it. She will not
yes,
protest. But on her own, left to her own devices, she's not doing any of these things. I can
it's a
preach
no.
all day long.
Oh, our mothers are so stubborn. I love it. It's
Well,
probably
we
why
come
we
by
are too.
it. Yeah, we come by it naturally, right?
Yes, yes, we do. Except mine's German, so I guess that makes sense, right? Both very stubborn backgrounds.
Right.
Um, so I guess, I don't want to, drag things out or anything. I think it's been so amazing. Um, if you were to give out one piece of like big advice, whether it be to a client at your age or a client at my age or just a person in general, what's your best advice to give out if someone's struggling with anything right now?
I would say my biggest piece of advice is you just have to learn to prioritize yourself. In this day and age, and even how I was raised, anything that was for self was selfish. Growing up in kind of this Bible Belt here in the South, it was a very like self-deprecating mentality, and anything that you would do that you wanted for yourself was selfish. It's for others, for others. And although that's very important, and I am a firm believer in living with a servant's heart, you can't do that to the place that you are denying the things that you want and need. And it took me a lot of living as a special needs mom to turn that around and understand that I wasn't a martyr because I was not sleeping, not eating, not exercising, everything for the sake of my daughter, and that I was giving up all of those things to make sure that she got what she needed. But she wasn't getting the best of what she needed because I wasn't the best that I could be, right? I wasn't the strongest physically or mentally or emotionally. And it's something that it's really a battle with a lot of my female clients, especially the moms that I work with, because you feel like you have given birth to this child and you have to give up everything for them, whether it's your career or your goals or your dreams or your health. You feel like you have to put yourself second behind all of the things for your kids. And I'm telling you right now, coming on the other side of that with an almost 21-year-old and an almost 18-year-old, you're going to shift to that point in your life where they don't need you in the ways that they used to need you. They need you in different ways, in some ways more impactful um, ways that they need your influence, but they don't need you with the day-to-day stuff anymore. You're seeing this already, right? I mean, Shay's 10, like getting to that place where she's really independent, and that's only going to continue. When you get to that other side of it, what are you left with? Who are you? And you have put so much of your life and identity into this position, into this role, as you should. But if it's at the cost of everything else, it's going to feel really empty when they leave the house and, they're off doing their own thing. And that's what you want. We want to raise them to be responsible adults. But if it's come at that cost where your relationship with your partner or your spouse has suffered, your relationship with yourself has suffered, you have to do something to take that back. And maybe it's not this grand leap of a career change, but maybe it's something small every day that you do, just something that brings your heart joy, whether it is working out because you know that that's good for your body, or it's chatting with a friend, or it's meeting someone and saying yes to a lunch or coffee, even though it doesn't exactly fit into your schedule and it's not the best timing. Really doing those kinds of things, because it all goes by so fast. And we have these moments where you really understand what that means, and the levity of how fragile life is and how short it is. And you don't want it to be one of those kinds of things that is the pivot point for you, like make that pivot before it's the thing that the bottom falls out, right? Really start to live life and enjoy it now, and don't get so wrapped up in all of these other roles and all these other things in your life where you're totally replaceable. I remember when I walked out of my last day of teaching, and I'm not an arrogant person, but I felt like, man, these people are really going to suffer when I'm gone. Like the whole English department's going to shut down. Like I don't know how they're going to make it without me, and hey, the college is still thriving even without me being there. And, they haven't skipped a beat. But the one place that you're not replaceable is as a wife and as a mother. And I would argue, even as a wife, you probably are, right? But as a mom, you're not replaceable. So you have to make sure that you are your best, happiest self. And I don't know. That's kind of where I am in my headspace right now, just getting to that place where I really want to enjoy what I have and what I've worked for and the people around me. And we're not guaranteed anything, so we better make the most of it today.
Oh God, I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here, Steph. I'm so positive that your words of wisdom have breathed some sort of insight into someone like they always do for me. So,
I think so.
oh gosh, well, I hope you have the most amazing week ahead, lady. I really, really thank you again so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and to everyone listening, I thank you guys for giving this, some time out of your day today. And Nikki is just a fabulous human being, and someone that I feel very blessed to have in my circle. So I know everyone listening to this is listening knowing that exact same thing. So keep doing all the amazing things that you're doing and changing the lives that you are. And I sit here and, applaud you, and just always am your cheerleader here on the side, just rooting you on. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.